Wearing the second son of a knight, I have a chat group introduction. Lewis travels to the continent of Sofia and becomes the second son of a knight family. He thought his life was just a little invention, becoming a wandering knight, and finally finding a beautiful and white noblewoman to marry him, wasting his life. Unexpectedly, on his first day as a wandering knight in adulthood, with a ding-dong sound, a golden finger descended from the sky. A loving family chat group. Looking at the groups of Louis and Louis one by one, he finally realized. After careful investigation, it was discovered that there seemed to be something wrong with the script I had taken. Chapter 1. Love and Family. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A family that loves each other. Louis von Lehmann-Muller leaned against the thighs of his little maid, Crotian, and listened to the faint snoring of Anna, the night attendant who had almost nothing else in her mind except for cultivation, after exhaustion, as well as the faint and clean sound of Anfi coming from outside the tent. Sometimes Louis really doubted who Anna and Anfi were the nightly attendants and who was an ordinary agent merchant. Why was Anfi's physical strength sometimes better than Anna at certain times? Cough, I pulled it too far. Pulling back his somewhat divergent thoughts, Louis looked back at himself, or rather, considering Crotian's reaction behind him, it should have been directly reflected in his mind, chat groups. Oh my goodness, it's been 16 years since he traveled. Besides the flush toilet he made himself, how long has it been since he saw such a modern product that makes people want to cry? My golden finger. This is Louis's first idea. Realizing that this chat group called Loving Family was his golden finger, Louis was still very satisfied. After all, it has been 16 years since he was born. Louis, who has tried countless times to read novels without activating the golden finger, originally thought he belonged to the type of protagonist who had no golden finger except for complete memory. Unexpectedly, he only received the golden finger on the day of adulthood. Oh, in this world, or rather in this continent called Sofia, the legal age is 16. Now Louis is not only pleasantly surprised, but also pleasantly surprised. Even if Goldfinger is just a chat group, and even if he can only chat, Louis is also very surprised. After all, there are numbers 70, 80, or even waiting until you die of old age to activate, or simply wiping out your underlying spiritual system. In this fragile era of time travel, chat groups, such as Golden Fingers, are already treated at an average or above level. Thinking about all these things, Louis skillfully clicked on the only group chat tool in his mind that had a similar interface to a certain penguin. New York Louis. Welcome newcomers. Newcomer photos. Louis, City A. Oh, there's a new person again. The record of new people I met before my unexpected death has increased again. Tolstoy School of Witchcraft and Wizardry Louis. Unfortunately, I almost got a new student killed today. At a City Louis, maybe I'll die before you. Louis, City A, sigh, aren't you a nobleman? Or are you a true bloodline aristocrat? How could it be more dangerous than in the place where I occasionally make strange noises? Louis, Touristin School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Generally speaking, I am relatively safe. After all, the countries on the mainland are very peaceful now. However, I have a premonition that the Duchess' daughter who just started school this year is definitely a dangerous person. She can even make a big explosion with even the most basic light magic. Tolstoy School of Witchcraft and Wizardry Louis. Picture. Louis's eyes were sharp, and he saw that the prefix was a picture sent by Louis from the Touristin School of Witchcraft and Wizardry to the group. It was a luxurious large room, even more than the bedroom in the castle he had spent 20 years building in the Muller family before. However, in the picture, lying on a soft velvet mattress, was a unlucky guy dressed up like a mummy all over. Touristin School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. The Demon of Zero. It can be considered as Louis's only travel welfare in the past, and during the journey, it has become a database like past life memory that can be easily accessed and viewed. Soon, the origin of the name Torrestein School of Witchcraft and Wizardry was found. But that's not important. What's important is that I used to have a script from a proctologist. I can't help but think otherwise. After all, the homophonic names of Louis in the group made him involuntarily think so. Louis's first thought was about his past self. Louis, who, like the proctologist, was divided into 99 or more parts when he was overwhelmed by the year-end performance of the mud truck. Then, in different worlds, Louis or Louis existed. But the chat group is a bit subtle. I don't know if there are any other ways to share my power. The proctology doctor is not a chat group, but a soul space where one can shake hands face-to-face, so they can share power. But it's really hard to say whether Louis, a loving family, can achieve this. However, after speculating that all the members in the group were Louis relaxed a lot and realized that if he continued to observe, he might leave a bad first impression on others. After thinking for a moment, he posted a selfie in the group with his big white legs on his back and greeted him. Louis the Walker. Picture, Trekker Louis. Hello everyone, I am Louis from the Sofia continent. Looking at the comments he posted in the group, especially his prefix name, Louis frowned. There seems to be something different from my own guess, with some subtle differences. As expected, with the newcomer Louis speaking in the group chat suddenly became more frequent, not only the few who had just spoken, but also some of the group members who were originally diving to peek at the screen. City A, Louis. New York Louis. Louis, Torrestein School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Is this a place name from another world? No, it's not a place name. The translation provided by the group chat at www.zhaoshuyuan.com told me that this is not a place name. Cloud Hidden Village, Louis. The Traverse. It seems that the new brother is a bit interesting. Raccoon City, Louis. Can newcomers post your chat group's full screen toolbar on the right side? Bedmaster City, Louis. Why is it Louis again? Is there no Louis? Bedmaster City, Louis. Isn't that right? The Traveler. He meowed. I finally saw a big shot. Twisting his head, Louis found a more comfortable and soft spot on Croshan's thigh with the back of his head. He frowned as he watched a chat group of many people suddenly emerge. Clicking on the toolbar on the right side of the group chat interface, Louis did not rush to send screenshots of the interface to the group, but carefully examined each function inside. Excluding the familiar group chat functions such as live streaming, group assignments, group courses, group red envelopes, and group files, Louis's gaze fixed on a function button called Group Traversal in the toolbar. After some thought, Louis sent a screenshot of the toolbar to the group. Bedmaster City, Louis. Sure enough, he is a big shot who can travel through. Louis from Raccoon City. I'll just say, in the pile of Louis with place names in front of us, suddenly a new person with a prefix that seems to be of the same identity category appears, which is definitely something different. Bedmaster City, Louis. What a bunch of Louis. Am I not Louis? Cloud Hidden Village, Louis. Cough cough, brother, that's not important. What's important is that if everything goes smoothly, we, Louis from different worlds, finally have a means to exchange goods. Although it seems that we need to rely on our new brother. In Chapter 2, it was decided that you would be crowned as a prophet. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Louis the Traveler. Are you not me, or are you all not travelers? What is me and not me? This is just a chat group between Louis and Louis. Although the names are similar, we are not the same person. Bedmaster City, Louis. No, I understand what the newcomer is saying. It seems to be a new genre of online literature that has just emerged. The Louis brothers, who may be from a certain world of shocking revelations, explained what the school of anorectal doctors is, but it opened the door to a new world for Louis from other worlds. New York Louis. So, newcomer, you must have thought too much. Everyone in the group, at least to my knowledge, is not traveling. From your perspective, we are all indigenous people of this world. Cloud Hidden Village Lewis. Before you appeared, we would at most have a live broadcast in the group, chatting about the mountains and other beautiful things, such as shaking hands and sharing each other's power, which was unimaginable. We couldn't even exchange resources. Lewis the Traveler. So, that group red envelope. Generally speaking, even if this type of chat group novel cannot share power like Duke Space, it can still be achieved by sending red envelopes to others to share their world specialties and even their own abilities, right? Cloud Hidden Village Lewis. Ah, that's just a simple, group red envelope. Lewis the Traveler. A simple, group red envelope. Is it? Lewis was somewhat speechless. Bedmaster City Louis. That's right, it's just a simple, group red envelope, that can send the legal currency of their respective worlds to the group. Lewis in the group explained this, group red envelope, function word by word. Overall, it's still a bit more mysterious than the penguin function in the past that could only use electronic accounts to send red envelopes. After all, it can still directly send physical currency, so Lewis, who seems to be from the Hokage world, is not rigorous in his statement. This chat group can also exchange goods with each other, but it is limited to legal tender in various worlds. But the problem is, except for a few members in the demon world of Zero, such as the Lewis brothers from the continent of Hokenia, who use rare metal currency, others use paper currency, at most some metal coins, which no one recognizes when sent to someone else's world. Torres Tin School of Witchcraft and Wizardry Lewis. However, we should continue to hold on to hope. After all, the red envelope feature of this group only appeared after the New York brother joined the group before. Today, the Traverse brother appeared, and we have added a little new feature. I estimate that this chat group will definitely continue to improve in the future. Okay, Lewis understands what kind of state this chat group is currently in. Looking at the members in the group member list who are less than 2 digits, it is obvious that this chat group is just starting out and even has incomplete functions. Only when certain members join the chat group will new features appear. Just like how Lewis from the World Economic Center of New York added the group red envelope feature to group chat, as well as the time travel feature that appeared after Lewis joined the group chat. Although the latter can only be used by Lewis alone. However, before considering anything else, one thing needs to be verified first. After some thought, Lewis pondered and spoke in the group. So, I have a few questions now that I want to ask all the big shots. Cloud Hidden Village Lewis. Oh, you're welcome. After joining the group, it's all brothers, not me boasting. Our ninjas in Cloud Hidden will never give up on any brother. Did the third ninja war occur, or did the fourth ninja war occur? Lewis the Crossover, Cloud Hidden Village Lewis. Louise, the Duchess daughter, shouldn't she be called Louise? She sounds quite similar to our names in pronunciation. Tolstoy School of Witchcraft and Wizardry Lewis. What is the current stock price of Umbrella Company? Forget it, no matter how much I advise you to sell, then reinforce your basement and create a post-apocalyptic survivor base. Raccoon City Lewis. Wait. What do you mean by that? Lewis the Crosser. The same goes for the brothers in Bedlord City. I wonder if the death crisis has erupted on your side. If not, the survivor base is worth owning. Bedmaster City Louis. Sleeping Trough, Profit Flow. Bedmaster City Louis. No, what kind of thing is going to explode here? Transmurer Lewis. Brother from New York, let me think about it. The situation on your end is quite complicated. Is there Captain America? Is there Batman? Is there Godzilla? Is there King Kong? New York Lewis. I just went to Captain America's Memorial Hall. Lewis the Traveler. Oh, my sincere suggestion is to sell your house in New York, it's easy to go bankrupt. New York Lewis. I bought full insurance. Looking for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, Louis the Traveler. Insurance companies can also go bankrupt. New York Louis. It seems to be a danger throughout New York. Trekker Louis. Brother from City A, has the Heroes Guild appeared in your area? Louis, City A. It has been 2 years since its establishment, can we say? Louis, complete. Do you know what will happen in our world? Louis the Crosser. That's right. Alright, now there's a hint of golden fingers. Louis smiled contentedly, making Crocien, who lowered her head and gently stroked Louis's head, think that her massage was very satisfying for the owner. Realizing that his true golden finger was a growing chat group, coupled with his unique ability to travel and not knowing if it would also be his unique storyline prophetic ability in the future, Louis quickly overturned his previous decision in his mind, go to the capital of the eastern border region of Hesse Kingdom, find Countess Alice Phil to be cute, and get in touch with Elia and Chloe, the twin sisters, to see if you can be a son.in.law. This is the original plan. Joking, I wanted to lie flat like this before because I had traveled to a different world that could be a low demon or a middle demon for 16 years. I don't know if it was because of my time travel, but I remember my clear memories of my past life. I worked hard to farm for 5 or 6 years but couldn't compete for the position of the first-in-line heir of my cheap brother's family. That's why I gave up and wanted to be a salted fish. Although there is a cheap father in this life who is a member of the conservative aristocratic class in the kingdom of Hesse and is also an extremely conservative and stingy conservative lord. His conservative thinking only wants to maintain his family business, which is closely related to the stable inheritance of the family. Chapter 3. Ambition Rises Again. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Think about yourself in the past few years, using a database like past life memory, striving to farm, reform, climb the technology tree, and accumulate wealth and heritage for the Muller family, all surpassing everything that the Muller family has accumulated since becoming a frontier pioneer knight for hundreds of years. However, all of this cannot offset the advantage of his cheap elder brother being born 3 years earlier than him. Even the most outstanding descendants cannot challenge the aristocratic inheritance system in the eyes of conservatives, and everything that follows rules and regulations such as bloodline theory is so firm in this extraordinary world, more deeply rooted in people's hearts than the original world's hierarchical concepts. Would it be better to have seeds? The nobles of this world do indeed have a kind, and their bloodline does possess extraordinary power, which indeed made Louis feel a bit disheartened. After a failure, he gave up on himself and had the idea of entering and no longer working hard. Besides, in his past life, he was also a master who had taken the civil service exam early and went to the Qingshui Yamen to fish. He didn't have that much ambition originally. Finding a wealthy woman to shout, "Rich woman, hungry, rice or something" is not embarrassing for people of his generation. Especially this rich woman is still Alice Phil. What's more, in this world, the race is the original match of the elf lady Alice Field, and the human male from the east has long died, making Louis feel even more fragrant. The knighthood he obtained from the king for his achievements in agricultural reform was enough for him to join the Ainsbellen family, even though the knighthood was only about honor, not inheritance, and had no status as a fiefdom. The eldest daughter of the Ainsbellen family, Elia, may not have been able to attend, but the second daughter, Chloe, is also very popular. Of course, a series of modern and improved desserts such as ice cream, pudding, and mousse that have been restored by oneself have established relationships in advance, and it is also important to have a good impression. Another thing is that his achievements in the past few years are indeed well known enough. In fact, before becoming a wandering knight as an adult, several nobles had already invited Louis, including the Ainsbellen family. Louis's cheap big brother and cheap dad were able to break the traditional unwritten rules of the conservative aristocracy and give him so much wealth as his second son, who was a wandering knight away from home. Not only was their family relationship acceptable, but they also had the idea that their relationship could not be completely strained in the future. Otherwise, the orthodox wandering knight would have at most an old horse, a rusty weapon, and a set of leather armor. Not to mention the personal maids and knightly attendants, they should not even have extra gifts. Therefore, Louis may not be particularly close to his family in this lifetime, but he cannot be said to have any resentment. Louis, relying on his clear memories of the explosion of past life information, was so outstanding in this medieval level of the Hessian kingdom that even the king joked at a gathering that he wanted to invite him to become a courtier to the king. Otherwise, Countess Alice Field and you are not related to each other. How could he have taken a liking to a small knight and let you enter? Just kidding, entering the count's house is not something that even cats and dogs can do. Cough, I pulled it too far. Now those plans can all be thrown aside, at most as backup options, they still need to be greatly modified. Louis's ambition, which had been completely shattered by the world's extraordinary power and particularly stubborn aristocratic system, rose once again upon seeing his golden finger. His brain was running rapidly, imagining how to use this chat group to develop himself, ultimately enabling him to live a life as fast and beautiful as in his previous life, even more so, in this dark era where there was no paper to use the toilet, black cuisine everywhere, and human life expectancy was less than 30 years old. Yes, that's Louis's ambition. Otherwise, why was the first reform he made in Muller Castle, which was toilet improvement? The flush toilet was only 7 years old and has already dominated the Hessian kingdom, even expediting to the Vatican. Your Majesty the Pope has agreed to use it. Looking at the existing members in the chat group, combined with the information obtained from previous conversations, it is obvious that the current members involve 6 worlds. Marvel, One Punch Superman, Naruto, Zero's Demon, Academy Silence, and Resident Evil. And after a period of simple communication and exchange of intelligence, Louis from every world finally understood, all Louis Meows are passers-by characters from all over the world. Louis of Marvel is a programmer of an internet company in New York. Louis of Superman opened a convenience store in City A. Louis of Naruto World is a new Jinshungren who survived 3 wars in Yunin Village by his life. Louis of Zero Evil World is the 3rd son of an ordinary baron in the kingdom of Talistan. The school implied that Louis of the World is a Chinese student who went to Fujimi School as an exchange student. Louis of Biochemical Crisis World is a team leader who undertook the cleaning work of Umbrella Company. Among them, Louis first ruled out the worlds of Zero's Demon and Naruto. These 2 worlds can be visited in the future, but going now is not very meaningful. The extraordinary system of the Zero Demon world, inherited from the ancestor premier, is more like a sorcerer than magic, and has bloodline requirements. Moreover, the technology of the Harkinian continent has just reached the level of the match gun, which is not much different from the world where Louis is currently located. The world of Naruto is a bit too dangerous. As a stranger, Louis, if he suddenly appears in an armed ninja village like Yunin Village. He really doesn't even know how to write death. Even Yunin Village Louis took the initiative to say that it would be better not to go to his world in the short term. Next, Louis temporarily excluded Marvel World for safety reasons. Although there are many predecessors who have gone to Marvel World, the most he has done is to exchange precious metals for some convenient modern products, which will not have an impact on Marvel World and will not let some big shots take notice of him, especially the Koichi children's shoes of the Novice Village Guardian, which are in a SCHRO Dinger state. I don't know if he will pay attention to him. But after all, there are so many options, and Louis looked at Marvel's bunch of tall and high-end experts, and decided to wait for a period of time for development before going. As for the future, whether it is Raccoon City, where the Resident Evil has not yet erupted, Bedlord City, which is at least a year away from the death crisis, or City A, where the headquarters of the League of Legends is located, Louis can do it. So, among you 3, who has a channel for exchanging precious metals translated to English in Bedmaster City Louis? Boss, you know me. I'm just an exchange student and I'm not even familiar with local public transportation. It's really pointless. Louis from Raccoon City. I can make some moves, but you know, this kind of private trading of precious metals, regardless of the quantity, will be targeted by vampires at the corresponding level in American. Based on my identity, I can guarantee a transaction amount of no more than $50,000 at Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. By the way, the precious metals I can provide now are all our gold and silver coins. If you want to process them into pure gold or something, it will take some time. Raccoon City, Lewis. Is it a finished medieval-style gold and silver coin? Then I also need to be cautious on my end. Lewis, City A. So that's all I have left, right? Lewis the Traveler. Is there no problem on your end? Lewis, City A. Although I can't go too far, as a convenience supermarket owner, I have more channels than the above two. Moreover, our government system here, I think you understand, can be said to be relatively loose. If something happens, you can also seek help from heroes. After communicating with Lewis from One Punch Superman World for a while, Lewis finally prepared to go to One Punch Superman World first to grab the first bucket of gold. As for whether it's dangerous or not, let's not mention that the first place to appear when crossing over is definitely the location of the opposite group of friends, and the surrounding danger factor is not high. And just because of the name of this chat group, Loving Family, Lewis also felt that generally no one would take the risk of offending the big shot who created this chat group and attack themselves in another world for no reason, right? Of course, there are risks, but opportunities are also great. If you dare not take any legitimate risks, then pack up your things early and go to the Ainsbellen house to stay. After counting the remaining assets in the caravan, Anfi gathered some extraordinary items such as gold coins, potions, and scrolls, and carefully read the text introduction of his unique time travel function in the chat group. Lewis took a final glance at the 3 women in the tent, who were enough for 4 people to roll back and forth, and decided to. Chapter 4. Starting today, I will be doing One Punch Superman. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lying next to him scratching his belly, without any manners, he slept soundly. It was his cheap father who wanted to avoid a stiff relationship with him. In addition, I strongly demanded to follow him, the most talented daughter of the sheriff knight and also his knight attendant, except for Anna Lehman Shaniat, who had nothing in his mind for cultivation. The one holding Lewis's head with warm and soft thighs was a 10th birthday gift bought by his cheap father 6 years ago. He carefully adjusted and coughed, and trained for 6 years to be a close maid who can both fight and warm the bed, and never leave. She is a dog girl named Crochin. The property that was distributed to Lewis by the family outside was counted, and it was either his parents who were killed by bandits on the grassland and almost sold as slaves by creditors, or later supported by Lewis, who became his white glove at the age of 12 and later became the flag bearer of the Muller family caravan, Anfi, with some fairy bloodline. It can be said that Anfi and Crochin can be considered as completely dependent on Lewis for their wealth and lives. Anna still has a way out, but this girl with only Lewis and the cultivation in her mind doesn't have so much fuss. Moreover, Anna, who had just undergone a routine 4-person mahjong routine in the evening, is now tired and sleeping soundly. If this trip goes smoothly, she probably doesn't know what Lewis will do later. Moreover, considering the various legends of legendary wizards in this world, Lewis's later journey will not only not appear abrupt, but also provide him with a background as a legendary wizard teacher. So, I was spotted by a legendary wizard. Crochin blinked without questioning how abrupt and absurd the cold words that came out of Lewis after playing mahjong were. She, who had already sold her whole heart to Lewis, immediately showed a joyful expression. She knows how disappointed her young master has been during this period of time. After working hard for so many years, he ultimately failed due to the crime of non-war. He has indeed suffered a huge blow and his emotions have not been high. The maid and bodyguard who entrusted her heart entirely to Lewis has always been worried, and even games that she used to be reluctant to cooperate with now cooperate, just to make Lewis happier. Now listening to Lewis say that a legendary wizard has set his sights on him, Crochen's heart is only filled with genuine happiness. As for the truth of the matter, young master wouldn't deceive her, would he? Anfi, who had just pushed open the tent curtain and entered, was stunned for a moment. It wasn't that she had any other ideas, it was just that Anfi had more knowledge than Crochen, who had been sold into slavery since childhood and had been serving Lewis since then. She knew the weight of the title of legend in the kingdom of Hesse, and even on the entire continent. Although she was somewhat puzzled as to why a legendary wizard suddenly fell in love with Lewis, Anfi soon realized that with the degree of binding between her and Lewis at this time, Lewis would not be able to pull a tiger skin on her. So Anfi also laughed quickly, even more surprised than Crochen. She was already planning to have a legendary wizard as her support. How long would it take for her to develop a caravan from scratch that was even larger than the original Muller family caravan? No, this time, I want to run a transcontinental chamber of commerce for Master Lewis. The teacher said they will pick me up later. For the first time, let me know. I expect to come back tomorrow and see if we can make some small deals with the wizard's relatives in the legendary wizard's territory. I understand, young Master Lewis. Anfi nodded to express his understanding. As is well known, wizards have their own families, and the power of a formal wizard can basically be seen as an independent small kingdom. Of course, the kind of kingdom in medieval Europe where thousands of people claimed to be kings. Even better, the power of wizards is generally relatively closed, which means that once a wizard's path is opened up, it is equivalent to monopolizing the trade of a power. And the territory of legendary wizards is generally in subspace, half-plane, forming a world of their own. According to the B.grid of legendary wizards, there must be a population of hundreds of thousands inside. How huge wealth is it to monopolize the foreign trade of such a massive force? So Anfi quickly went to help Lewis prepare the goods for his first trade, and even prepared some goods for him as a senior merchant for 4 years. Then Crochen and Anfi witnessed in Anna's faint snoring that Louis was carrying 2 large bags of things and disappeared instantly. Kira, for the first time traveling, Lewis only felt that as soon as he closed his eyes, he realized that the scenery before him had transformed from a typical medieval merchant tent to a small room with a pile of folding chairs, several plywood tables, and a desktop computer that brought tears to his eyes. Oh my goodness, he hasn't touched a computer in 16 years. Looking at the eye-catching desktop computer, Lewis reluctantly averted his gaze and met another young man in the room who was looking at him with surprise. The prompt from the chat group of a loving family told him that the young man or uncle in front of him was Lewis of City A. And not only that, as the two of them officially met in reality, a bunch of prompts popped up in their minds. It's almost like that, congratulations to the group members for their first offline chat. In order to maintain a harmonious and friendly atmosphere in the group chat system, conflicts between group members are strictly prohibited during the offline chat process, including but not limited to physical conflicts, language conflicts, thinking deception, mental abuse, and causal induction. Something like that. Okay, I'm sure I guessed correctly. Upon seeing this prompt, Lewis nodded. He dared to travel around so recklessly, not only because of the face of the group chat name, loving each other as a family. Although I don't know which big shot created this chat group, since the big shot has set the name of the group chat as loving and loving a family, the meaning behind it can only be said to be understood. If you don't understand, you probably won't even be able to join the group. There are also some precautions for system prompts, as well as automatic loading translation mechanisms and other functions, but Lewis didn't pay much attention to these. He was more concerned about the last prompt that popped up in the system. Zhaoshuyuan.com Congratulations to group member Trekker Lewis and group member A City Lewis for their first encounter. Group members can choose a talent from the talent pool of the first meeting group members. Based on the specific talent pool of group member A City Lewis's world, the talents you can choose include 1. Eccentricity. It can easily break the current ability limit, greatly improve one or more of one's own abilities, but it will greatly change the appearance and attributes of the organism. 2. Limiter. A data visualization limiter will be loaded on group members to meet the requirements of the limiter breakthrough. It can significantly improve one or more of the group members' abilities while maintaining their own biological characteristics and rational thresholds. Is there such a good thing? Lewis's eyes lit up, almost without hesitation. He didn't intend to cosplay the savior of a certain villain anymore, so he chose the second limiter directly. The special talent ability limiter in this world has been loaded. Limiter is a concept proposed in the original work One Punch Superman. Due to the differences in power between species and individuals, there exists a limit that cannot be eliminated no matter how much effort is put in. The significance of this limit is to allow various organisms to grow within the scope of their own survival consciousness and rationality, and this growth limit is called a limiter. Those who lose their sense of survival and rationality, and exceed this growth limit, will become monsters in the original work. And those who can maintain the survival consciousness and rational scope of their species, and go beyond this growth limit, are heroes. In the original work, only the protagonist, One Punch Superman Chiyu, maintains her human form, completely lifting the restrictions and becoming One Punch Superman who punches everyone. Chapter 5. The so-called natural talent. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The story told by One Fist Superman is very simple. It is about the protagonist Chiyu, who, after 3 years of joking and hard work, has become the strongest person above all heroes and monsters. Yes, it's the one that appears in many novels. 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100 squats, and 10-kilometer long runs every day. Oh, by the way, there are also essential bananas every day, and in summer, you can't turn on the air conditioning and fan. After persisting for 3 years, Chiyu became the strongest fighter in the world, punching the universe Hegemon Polos and kicking the monster Wang Dashan. The plot is mainly about Chiyu's portrayal of pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger, as well as the battles and humorous stories between the sage and the monsters and heroes. The heroes in the original work have more or less broken through the limitations of ordinary people, but like Chiyu, who completely lifted the human limit, tomorrow's I can crush yesterday's, constantly becoming stronger. This is just one example. Lewis chose the talent of the limiter and valued breaking through it not only to enhance his own strength by leaps and bounds, but also to ensure that he was still an individual. And even better, the limiters loaded in chat groups can achieve data visualization. It should be noted that after traveling through a different world, Lewis spent about 10 years, with the support of a well-established nightly path and family, continuously practicing breathing techniques every day, and finally became an official knight. Along the way, he had the idea of giving up his cultivation and focusing on pleasure more than once. He is just an ordinary person. In the absence of a system panel that can solidify his own abilities and provide him with clear and seamless feedback on all his efforts, it is difficult for him to persist in hard work and effort in the absence of clear positive feedback. If it weren't for being led by a cheap father in his lifetime to participate in an action to suppress serfdom riots in his territory when he was a child, witnessing firsthand how life is worse than a dog in this medieval world, he would not have been able to survive as an old salted fish in his past life. Without him, afraid of death. Now that the limiter has been loaded, Lewis can easily see the need to break through from a formal knight to a great knight in his personal account. Achieve a breakthrough in physical fitness, strength, and speed beyond the current normal limit. And an evenly matched battle. If on the continent of Sofia, one goes from being a newly broken official knight to being a backbone knight in a civilized country, it requires at least 15 years of uninterrupted hard work and guidance from a renowned teacher to achieve. Lewis himself was very self-aware, and he estimated that it would be good to see the dawn of breaking through the Grand Knight before his knightly physical condition began to decline. Now, Lewis only needs to meet these simple 4 requirements to break through the current limitations and become a great knight. And the hard conditions stipulated by this system represent that Lewis can find ways to cheat and use clever methods to achieve the standard. Not to mention anything else, Lewis learned about no less than 5 ways to temporarily break through the limit of a single attribute during his training as a family knight. Although these methods have the drawbacks of short duration, prolonged weakness, and even potential harm, Lewis only needs a moment to achieve the condition of breaking through the limiter in the system. As long as we can break through, everything will be fine. There is no need to worry about the 3 most troublesome points. As for the last point, it is actually the easiest situation to achieve an evenly matched battle. With Lewis's identity, one can obtain such opportunities for sparring at a certain cost while ensuring their own safety. There is no need to win, as long as it is an evenly matched battle, one can break through. And I don't necessarily have to go back and find opportunities to compete with other formal knights. If I were here, in the A city of this Heroes Association headquarters, those heroes who hit the big luck would encounter a newly emerged wolf-level monster step by step. Maybe I could break through to the Grand Knight before I go back. After all, most of the monsters here are mutated from ordinary humans, and a considerable number of them have not undergone professional combat training before. After becoming monsters, they only have a knight-level physical fitness without corresponding combat experience. Lewis, a formal knight who has undergone hard training to break through, even dares to win a pair of World War II. Thinking about when he went back, others suddenly realized that he had become a Grand Knight at the age of less than 20. That scene, TSK. You should know that, not to mention that he only became a formal knight last year. It is widely recognized in the mainland that those under the age of 30 who become great knights are legendary seeds and will receive high standards of support and preferential treatment from the royal family and nobles of their own country. This time traveling, this simple restriction is enough to satisfy Lewis. This is really. Indeed, I have been poor in farming for 3 generations, and I have enjoyed a lifetime of farming. Lewis regained his senses and exchanged a glance with a city Lewis across from him, both of whom could see the other person's joy. Lewis was curious about what talents the other person could choose from him. What did you choose? I have chosen a mediocre wizard talent, as well as a moderate divine spell talent and a moderate knight talent. However, I have always chosen Fey when playing games, so I don't consider other talents. Lewis in City A had a very simple idea. Although the poor wizard talent may not look very good, the chat group is just starting to allow people to choose talents, and there may not be any functions to improve talents in the future. As the headquarters of the Heroes Association, the city where he is located in A is still very safe. Except for the time when the space pirates attacked more than a year later, there is not much danger. Even if he accidentally encounters a fish that has escaped the net and has the help of his friends, the danger is slightly equivalent to nothing. After a brief thought, he made up his mind to continue on the path of the Dharma Master. After all, there is no career balance mechanism in reality. Fey is Fey. Once you become Fey, you are a superior person. Lewis was somewhat surprised. He didn't expect that he really had a talent for wizarding, but his poor talent for wizarding made him realize that no wizarding master would be interested. However, simply knowing that there is still a possibility of being a wizard or a priest is already a good gain. And the intermediate knight talent is also in line with Lewis's previous speculation. This level of knight talent, at most, can break through a great knight in one's lifetime. Legends are beyond imagination. Lewis also briefly explained his chosen talent, which is not surprising for a city Lewis. After all, this spoiler had already explained the general situation of his one-punch superhero world in the group before. The concepts of personification and limiters, or rather the setting of the power system in this world, are still well understood by City A Lewis. It's a pity, I don't know if I have a higher talent for being a weirdo or a higher talent for breaking through the limit normally. Find Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. A city Lewis casually said that even if he has a higher talent for being a weirdo, he doesn't want to be a bad person. After all, just think about this world where there is a guy named Chiyu quietly developing, and he is almost finished developing. He has gathered all the 6 divine costumes, and except for the hungry wolf, no one wants to be a weirdo. Anyway, welcome to my world, big shot. Louis in City A quickly sorted out his mood, eagerly holding Louis's hand and shaking it warmly. He is just an ordinary convenience store owner. Apart from having the strength to move goods frequently, he has nothing special. He can't even defeat the lowest level wolf-level monster. In the future, when encountering monsters and heroes don't have time, he will still rely on Louis to save the scene. Moreover, although he has a poor talent as a wizard, he also has expectations, isn't he? In the future, this method of wizard cultivation will also fall on Louis. At first, the two of them were a bit unfamiliar, but with the buff bonus of chat group sand sculpture, they quickly became acquainted. Louis was eating the hamburger and French fries ordered by the convenience store owner with tears in his eyes, drinking the iced black happy water, feeling like he had come to life. It's pitiful to see him, who has been eating boiled apples in a foreign world for 16 years, gazing up at the stars, and cooking pork with salt without bleeding, once again eating hamburgers, fries, and cola filled with industrial processing flavors. How joyful it is. So Louis ate from noon until night, eating hard until his night level and powerful digestive system couldn't hold up. He reluctantly stopped his mouth and let out a satisfying burp. This made the whole afternoon run outside, finishing all the goods brought by Louis. Just as a city entered, Louis's eyes twitched. Chapter 6. Wizardry Props. You are listening at novelfull.audio. All the items have been cleared, and I have placed an urgent order with a familiar supplier for the goods you requested. Most of them will be ready today, while some sensitive materials will have to wait until tomorrow. City A. Louis sat in front of Louis and casually grabbed a chicken leg to nibble on it. He didn't need to be polite, after all, Louis didn't have the currency of Superman world, and these fast foods were all bought with his money. Louis, who was already addicted, wiped his hands and took out a necklace-style amulet from his pocket, handing it to Louis in City A. What is this? The convenience store owner who had been running all day was not afraid that Louis would harm him. With chat group constraints, he directly took the talisman handed over by Louis. A low-level witchcraft accessory, which is a type of defense equipment often seen in Western fantasy novels, can recognize harmful attacks on you and automatically form a shield that covers your entire body. The effect is to withstand my best effort 3 times every 24 hours. Well, what is the power of your hard and full blow? Louis pondered for a moment and looked at the multiple wolf-level monsters causing destruction in the live broadcast of Sea City on TV. He pointed to a strange person who looked like a gas pump and was smashing a car. It's about this kind of power, one fist, one small car. Louis said this, and the convenience store owner understood that this thing can withstand 3 attacks from powerful wolf-level monsters, weakening the attack power of most tiger-level monsters. This thing, although it doesn't sound like a high-end equipment, it's exactly what this convenience store owner needs now. Because there is someone behind him, what he needs is to be able to counteract the initial surprise attack and delay enough time to shake the person. Of course, the shaker can only shake up to Louis, with his current official night level strength, which means he can protect himself under the tiger level monster and fight against the wolf level monster. In the world of One Fist Superman, monsters are divided into 5 levels from strong to weak. Divine, Dragon, Tiger, and Wolf. The divine level represents the ability to destroy human civilization, the dragon level can cause the destruction of multiple towns, and the ghost level is against a single city. The tiger level can cause a crisis of massive casualties, but usually a fully armed team can deal with them. The wolf level is the strongest, and with good luck, ordinary people can kill them alone. Except for the god-level monsters that have never appeared before, the heroes in the Hero Association that other monsters target are at SABC levels. S.level heroes are used to deal with dragon and ghost levels, A.level heroes are generally used to deal with ghost and tiger levels, B.level monsters are used to deal with tiger and wolf levels, and C.level heroes are used to deal with wolf level and general criminal cases. Of course, this thing is only theoretical, after all, the protagonist Chiyu was only a C-level hero at the beginning. They still played against dragon-level ghost-level monsters, and there were also the strongest man in the world like King who broke the luck limit. In fact, he couldn't even beat a wolf-level monster. The League of Legends only roughly informs the corresponding heroes of the intelligence of the corresponding level monsters based on the above principles. In the original work, A-level heroes were killed by dragon-level monsters in seconds, while S-level heroes were often inadvertently killed by ghost-level monsters, which is also a common occurrence. Yes, that's right, it's you, Genos, who can't help but self-destruct at this point. Although these monsters have great strength, their skills are weak and their speed is average. I can kill wolf-level monsters alone, while tiger-level monsters cannot be killed if operated properly. However, ghost-level monsters. The convenience store owner nodded. If he really encounters a ghost-level monster or a higher-level monster in City A, it's because he's unlucky and no one can blame him. He can't even drag the big shot in. Moreover, this magical prop can be imagined and is also quite precious. After all, according to Lewis, on the continent of Sofia, even a magical prop that has almost no practical significance and can only emit light for night lighting can be sold for 40 to 60 fiat coins. The convenience store owner thought about the exotic gold coins he had just sold. If he had 40 coins, he could exchange them for 10,000 flashlights that could have the same effect. Lewis said that although the level of this necklace talisman was lower, it was already the best magical item he could come into contact with in the past. After all, Lewis used to be nothing more than a good-sounding border exploration knight leader, and a bad-sounding inheritor of the rural bumpkin family on the edge of the civilized world. He was still the second son, and having such a self-charging defensive prop when he was a child was already the reason why he was attractive and had outstanding abilities. Only wizards can manufacture witchcraft items, and not all wizards can do so. There is no professional balance in the other world, and in the real world, wizards have a higher status, stronger strength, and more diverse means than knights and priests. Compared to the fighting spirit and magical system that has already been popularized among the aristocratic class of knights and nobles, it is indeed unpredictable, and more diverse witchcraft is rarer and more powerful. A formal wizard can have the same status as a grand priest in a big city temple or a powerful knight in the kingdom army, which is the reality of the Sofia continent. If possible, I also want to be a wizard. Some people choose who would become a muscular brute facing the enemy head-on. Lewis's mouth twitched and he went to the book garden www.zhaozuiyuan.com. Apart from anything else, if he were really a wizard, even if his cheap father was a conservative aristocrat in his lifetime, he would break tradition and promote him as the first-in-line heir of the family. But isn't it that his wizard talent is poor? There's no other choice but to become a knight and make do with it. But now that doesn't matter anymore, with the support of chat groups, Lewis won't be able to become a wizard in the future, even if he becomes a legendary deity, it's not impossible to think about it. Knowing how to look at this women's-style necklace in my hand, I cherish it so much. It is basically equivalent to the sum of the values of all the goods that Lewis poured into his world today. The convenience store owner also didn't hesitate and decided to wear this thing properly around his neck. Lewis tried his best to shift his gaze away from the necks of his group members, but he couldn't help it. Although he gave it away, this magical item can be considered one of the most precious items in his hand. Although he has become a formal knight and his demand for this item is not as great as before, it is also a good choice to give it to his own woman. However, for now, it is indeed more important for the safety of a city Lewis as a group friend. After all, without him as the anchor point, Lewis would not be able to come to Superman world with a single punch in the future. Although Mr. Lewis in a city is considered the safest city in the world of Superman, before the plot begins, due to the uncertainty of the appearance of monsters, as an ordinary convenience store owner, if he encounters any tiger or wolf-level monster in a corner, with this talisman, it is a prop that can save his life. The benefits of One Punch Superman world are significant. Just talking about some ordinary modern social goods, they are top-notch luxury goods on the Sofia continent. The profits brought by this transaction are enough to exchange Lewis and his girls for a complete set of new witchcraft props. Chapter 7. I'm so high that I can't stand it anymore. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Actually, a city is usually quite safe. The next morning, the convenience store owner who was taking Lewis to pick up the goods felt that, in order to maintain his reputation in the world, he had defended his city. However, looking at the lobster brother blocking the way ahead, Lewis could only hold a reserved opinion. By the way, can this thing be eaten? Well, if it's true that the strongest hero you mentioned in the group often brings back the by-products of monsters to cook and eat, then, probably, maybe, can we eat them? The convenience store owner with a witchcraft item hanging around his neck spoke harder than yesterday, even though the lobster in front of him was so angry that it turned red as if it had been cooked. The two humanoid figures still didn't take this giant lobster monster seriously. Okay, Lewis admits that the weirdo thing is really not worth talking about. Yesterday, he just considered the possibility of a city. Lewis facing the weirdo directly on the streets and alleys in the future, and the next day, as soon as he left, he really met a weirdo, because I love eating lobster too much, I eat lobster 3 times a day, and I suddenly become a wolf-level monster of the lobster monster. Can the reason why humans turn into monsters in the world of Superman be more playful? Oh, it could be more playful, for example, turning into a goldfish monster due to high-interest loans. Pressing the impulse to cover his face helplessly, Lewis handed the miscellaneous items on his body to his brother next to him, casually drew out a knight's two-handed sword, took 2 steps forward, and put on a good posture. By the way, this thing has more strength than me, and can barely be considered an evenly matched opponent, right? What do you want to say? What I mean is, it doesn't matter if I knock it down here, right? The convenience store owner, who had not seen the works of Zeus Fate and had not found any memes in the Lewis dialect, made a gesture of resignation. It would be great if you could knock it down, not only with bonuses, but also to establish good relationships with the Heroes Association. By the way, some companies and research institutions even purchase the bodies of monsters. The convenience store owner who already knows Lewis's specific strength is not worried about the danger of this battle. Please, although Lewis is now lightly armed, he still has close-fitting armor and a two-handed sword. The lobster opposite him has no other weapons except for 2 extremely unreasonable large pliers placed on land. By the way, do lobsters have pliers? The convenience store owner seems to have discovered Huadian. Thinking this over and over again, the convenience store owner easily dodged to the side and also opened a group live broadcast in the group, preparing to earn some group points that have not been of much use so far. The fact is that there are relatively few viewers in the group, it seems that the time is not right, and most of the other group members are not online. Damn it, how dare you humans underestimate lobsters? The lobster monster was very face-saving and only began to speak harshly after Lewis had set his posture. No, that one. We just like to eat lobster and have never underestimated it. Bastard, I became a monster of lobsters because I love eating lobsters too much. I want to protect lobsters and eliminate you humans who look down on lobsters. There are too many flaws in your words, where should I spit them out? Lewis casually turned to one side and dodged the lobster monster's powerful claws that had descended from the sky. With a slight jump, he dodged another large claw that had come over. Although the opponent's strength is great, even reaching the official knight level, the speed is really unbearable. In Lewis's eyes, it is like doing slow movements. Jumping onto the large pliers that smashed a hole in the cement floor, I followed the extremely unreasonable proportion of the pliers and ran to the side of the lobster monster's head. As he waved his large sword towards the small eyes, Lewis calmly said, "First of all, those who love to eat lobsters don't insist on protecting them." The lobster monster's mutated pair of small eyes suddenly shrank back into its shell, relying on its own hard shell. It had just grabbed an empty pair of pliers and threw it back at its head. Feeling the deadly power of the large pliers that flew over him, even higher than his height, Lewis allowed his heart to beat faster and faster, suppressing the impulse to avoid, and under reason, allowing anxiety, fear, and tension to spread. Then he released his right hand from the hilt of the sword and, without hesitation, punched himself in the chest. Knight's secret skill. Speed. At that moment, Lewis's world slowed down in his eyes. The knight's secret technique called speed not only increased the speed of the body, but also increased the reaction speed of the nerves. There would be no jokes about the body speed increasing but not being able to react. Also relying on this secret technique, Lewis launched a surprise attack and, at a speed faster than the lobster monster's attack, followed the opponent's head shell and hid behind the lobster head. There are still 10 seconds left. Silently calculating the duration of the speed in his heart, Lewis didn't say any more words to the other party. He directly slashed and aimed at the armor gap between the lobster's head and body. The excellent knight's two-handed sword from the other world accurately cleaved into the gap, but due to the angle and strength, it did not penetrate much. However, this was enough to make the lobster monster feel pain. Tisk, it's really hard. It's hard to imagine that this thing used to be an ordinary human, but with just a mutation, it gained knight-level power and defense comparable to that of a great knight. You should know that Lewis had been rolling and crawling in a different world for 10 years before he had such strength, and the other party may have suddenly become a strange person with comparable strength just in a moment of enlightenment, which is really unreasonable. Feeling that this strange thing is really unreasonable, Lewis can only hope that the limiter he chose will break through now, which is also unreasonable. With this thought in mind, Lewis didn't hesitate, took out a potion, and didn't have time to open the bottle cap. He smashed open the upper part and drank the potion mixed with some broken utensils. The potion, blessed with magic and exotic alchemy techniques, began to take effect as soon as it entered his mouth. Lewis felt that his physique and strength had been strengthened, and he was still under the influence of the speed secret technique. Otherwise, his speed would have increased significantly. It's truly a frenzy potion, powerful. Lewis, whose eyes were beginning to engorge with blood, roared and screamed wildly, with abnormal protrusions of blood vessels on his muscles. Anyone who looked at it knew that this was definitely a costly and desperate way. Even the lobster monster began to recall in his mind, wondering if he had provoked the other person in the past. Why did he suffer so much? However, in that moment, Lewis felt a lock on his body break silently, and then all the strange things in his body disappeared. Lewis raised his right hand and said, "A evenly matched battle." Then he raised his left hand and said, "The three attributes exceed the normal limit." Clenched his fists and said, this is the power of the Grand Knight. I'm so high. The discomfort caused by the frenzy potion and knight's secret techniques has little impact on the strong physique of the new breakthrough to the Grand Knight class. Zhaozuiyuan.com. Feeling the breakthrough in his body that was neither scientific nor magical, Lewis tugged at the corner of his mouth and withdrew from his stance, seemingly lazily standing there, allowing the lobster monster to turn around. Bastard, you hurt me. Watching the other person's demeanor recover, the lobster monster felt that he had done it again and directly threw a pair of pliers down. Faced with the pincer attack that he dared not forcefully take 10 seconds ago, Lewis calmly raised his right index finger and directly grabbed the large pincer that had fallen. Although the cement floor beneath his feet was suddenly cracked by the transmitted force, Lewis himself, who had taken the blow, seemed to be unharmed and even made a hash. The lobster monster was taken aback by this sudden change. If it were in the animation, there would probably be a drop of cold sweat flowing from its silly little eyes. How could it be? Its brain, which had become a monster and had lost its senses, couldn't figure out why it had previously relied only on agile body movements and its own 5 split guy, but now it has shown the power to crush itself. You should know that this strike relied on the momentum from top to bottom and the strength added by the body structure. If you could describe it so lightly, it can be imagined that the opponent's strength is already much greater than yours, not at the same level. Just as the lobster monster was confused, Lewis raised his index finger and shook it, making the monster nervous and unsure of what Lewis was going to do. Faced with the nervousness of the strange person, Lewis simply said softly. Secondly, the so-called lobster actually has no pliers. Chapter 8. I met you, in my notebook. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What? Lewis, who had broken through to the Grand Knight, looked at the stunned lobster monster and lightly thrust his two-handed sword forward like a one-handed sword. The meaning is. You didn't eat lobster for 3 meals the day before, it was crayfish. Just now, he was able to defend against the official knight-level armor, and under the attack of the new Grand Knight, he was as thin as paper. Lewis easily pierced through the abnormal proportion of the lobster monster's head, and with a horizontal cut, he cut off 2 large pliers and head. After the other person's body was heavily covered in yellow and green tissue, as if a heavenly maiden had scattered flowers, Lewis finally exhaled. Although he trusted his own golden finger very much, as he was a big shot who allowed him to easily travel to other worlds, it was not until he truly met the conditions written on golden finger and completed the breakthrough in an instant that Lewis felt at ease. Although even if his golden finger shook him, he wouldn't be in any danger. Choo Choo is a wolf-level monster, and Lewis can still handle it. Feeling the discomfort caused by the gradual fading of the secret techniques and medicinal effects in his body, Lewis nodded. Fortunately, if the sequelae of the secret technique and the negative effects of the potion were combined when he was still a formal knight, it would probably ruin his future in cultivation. On the continent of Sofia, no formal knight dares to use these two together, it is a path of self-destruction. But after breaking through to the Grand Knight level, the relatively crushing physical strength of the Grand Knight level allows Lewis to basically ignore the consequences of the combination of these two, only feeling a slight discomfort in his body. Looking at the system page in my mind, the talent limiter in the talent bar has turned gray, with a 48-hour buffer time slowly counting down. It seems that the limiter cannot be continuously broken through, and it is indeed not a bug-like existence like Chi-Yu. It's just 48 hours. If all the cultivators of the night route on the continent of Sofia knew that someone could continue their breakthrough attempt seamlessly within a few days after reaching the Grand Knight, I don't know how many people would go crazy. Overall, Lewis was very satisfied with this battle. Although the recent battle seemed a bit dangerous, it was actually under Lewis's control throughout the entire process. The unlucky crayfish monster, already bleeding profusely on the ground, belonged to Lewis, who forcibly released it to the sea in order to barely compete, in order to achieve the conditions required for the limiter breakthrough. Even if there is a mistake in the middle, there is not much danger. After all, Lewis still has a disposable magic scroll hidden in his pocket, and the exhausted lobster monster does not threaten Lewis's life safety. I clenched my fist, kicked my feet, and felt the intensity of my body now. Although there were still some sequelae of forcefully using secret techniques and gnawing potions that interfered with me before, Lewis felt that now he could at least hit 10 of himself at the same time. This is the Grand Knight, truly the leader in leading the knights' charge during war. Lewis understood a bit why the dwarves on the continent of Sofia had produced the most primitive versions of machine guns, but the mainstream of the continental war was still the combined witchcraft of wizards, the collective halo of the knights, and the large blessings of the priests. Although Lewis used to believe that Sofia was now a low demon world, this performance is definitely at the top level of the low demon world. And because he used to be in a remote area of the civilized world, he didn't know much about the true top level of the Sofia continent, so it's possible that the Sofia continent is actually a middle demon world. Lewis estimated that firearms would need to develop to the level they were during World War II on Earth in order to become a combat factor on par with the 3 mainstream combat groups mentioned above. During World War II, it was already quite good as it was already in a state of overflowing firepower, and nuclear weapons were also developed during World War II. Lewis was still pondering the policy of dominating the mainland in the future, while on the other side, the convenience store owner and group friends who had been hiding on the side for a long time saw that the battle here had settled. They breathed a sigh of relief and greeted the three group friends who had just arrived in the group live broadcast, then walked over and poked the big pliers on the ground. "Are we really going to eat this thing?" Louis shrugged and said, "After all, in my original world, there was a discussion in the One Punch Superman Tiaba that one possible factor for Chiyu to break through the limit without restriction was that in these 3 years, he ate all the food that could be eaten by the strange people he knocked down on the road. Well, is this considered an alternative cannibalism? So it's just speculation, after all, what does Chiyu say?" Louis blinked and thought for more than a dozen circles before finally summarizing Chiyu in one sentence. "He's really a good person." Louis and his friends discussed whether the crayfish monster on the ground could be eaten. If this monster had a strange shape and looked like a nemesis, it would naturally be difficult to swallow. However, if it looked similar to chicken, duck, fish, or had a head full of seaweed, the psychological burden of swallowing would naturally be reduced. Louis finally communicated with the convenience store owner, and even if he wanted to eat, he would only eat those 2 pliers, and the rest would be fine. Just as Louis and the others were carrying 2 large pliers and preparing to move to the warehouse, a sound of running came over. The 2 of them turned around and saw several people dressed in dog-like outfits. Cough cough cough, no, I mean guys wearing uniform black suits and uniforms, panting and running over. Snowblowing group. Upon hearing what City A. Louis said, Louis himself's eyes lit up. "Oh, this is not the nice body who often plays sister's good friendship with the tornado in the book. Go to the bookstore www.jiaozuan.com to blow snow in hell." Louis looked behind this group of people with some inexplicable expectations, and as expected, these combinations of petite girls and strong men with inverted triangular muscles tacitly parted on both sides. One was dressed in exquisite attire, wearing a pearl necklace and other jewelry, wearing a dark green dress and black high-heeled knee-high leather boots. After wiping my head, it was possible that I had been sweating profusely all the way over. I suppressed the intensity of my exhalation and tried my best to maintain a graceful and atmospheric demeanor as I walked out. Okay, it seems that the snow-blowing group has not yet raised funds to buy that Wuling Hongguang. Just as Louis was thinking about these potentially impolite ideas. Whether it was the notebook or the finance of the snow-blowing group, these 2 topics seemed to easily stimulate snow-blowing's self-esteem. Snow-blowing had already organized her breath, lifted her head and looked up. "Did you defeat this strange person?" Blowing Snow didn't even glance at a City Louis. After all, the convenience store owner was just an ordinary passerby, with no strong artistic style. In his 30s, he even had a protruding belly, and was about to evolve into a greasy uncle. Blowing Snow naturally wouldn't think that the lobster monster was killed by the boss. Her gaze was naturally fixed on Louis, who is now 16 years old and in his prime. Her muscles were well proportioned, making her look like a beautiful young man. At the scene, only Louis appeared to have a bit of a strong style. After all, passers-by would not hold a 2-handed sword with one hand, carry 2 pliers that are even larger than adults, and lift weights lightly. In this world, it is assumed that the strong have their own artistic style, so teacher Chiyu was always underestimated in the early stages. But I don't know if it's an illusion. Louis always felt that in the eyes that Blowing Snow looked at him, there seemed to be warmth and longing. Lying down, you're still licking your lips. Help, there are foodies here. Chapter 9. Joining the snow-blowing group and becoming mine. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Although I had read many books about blizzard and tornado before traveling, that didn't mean. Well, Louis was quite looking forward to it. After all, although he was lucky enough to travel and become a low-level aristocrat, he received that kind of education as soon as he had the ability, and later even received 3 girls. But compared to an imperial sister, the 3 little girls still feel different sizes. But in broad daylight, isn't it okay for you, little sister? Louis, who had traveled through time, was a genuine and beautiful 16-year-old boy. He didn't care about the fact that his age in his previous life was similar to that of the convenience store owner next to him, and the fact that his two lives combined to make him a snow-blowing father was almost the same. Of course, if Snowblowing really calls him dad, he doesn't mind either. Fortunately, although there may be a hint of lust for men in blowing snow, her fiery gaze towards Lewis was more due to the feeling that she had found another key member of the blowing snow team. Moreover, this probationary member is a rare member whose appearance can rival his own. In the future, he will become a spokesperson for the external publicity of the snow-blowing group, which is very rare. After all, there are not many heroes with both strength and appearance, and encountering one is just a stroke of luck. With this thought in mind, Blowing Snow casually brushed her hair, actually wiping away the sweat from her ear and slightly tilting her head, as Lewis had always remembered, saying somewhat condescendingly. "Not bad, although it's just a wolf-level monster. I recognize your ability to defeat the opponent in such a short time." Blowing Snow observed the battle marks around her with her eyes, looked at more than one pit, broken trees and power poles, and silently evaluated in her heart. The young man in front of him had no scars on his body, but his clothes were somewhat damaged and his face felt a little disheartened, indicating that Lewis had fought a difficult battle. The battle was not controlled within a certain range and caused significant damage to the surrounding environment, indicating that the battle lasted for a certain period of time. Lewis did not rely on any explosive skills to knock down the opponent with one strike. Analyzing it this way, Blowing Snow felt confident in her heart. It is obvious that this young man is stronger than a wolf-level monster and can kill opponents without any damage, but he has not formed a completely overwhelming situation. He is almost at the level of a B.level hero and is still relatively backward. A B.level hero would be easy to handle, as the self-proclaimed Blow Snow who can also rank at the forefront of A.level has confidence in subduing the young man in front of him. Well, if it were Lewis, who was officially knightly before, he would definitely not be able to compete with Blizzard. After all, Blizzard is at least a superpower who can compete with ghost-level monsters. On the continent of Sofia, he is also a strong warrior at the level of a Grand Knight. It's just that her sister's tornado is too dazzling, which makes the original work appear less snowy. In fact, this little sister, Blown Snow, is also one of the top A.level heroes. She only stayed in the B.level heroes to ensure her position as the first, which can be considered as a chicken head rather than a phoenix tail. But now that I have broken through to the Grand Knights Lewis, I can also proudly say that I have also fought against the ghost-level monster. This is an equivalent exchange, and that would be Lewis and Snow Blowing at the same level. Moreover, in 48 hours, the limiter will cool down and Lewis may be able to perform a continuous breakthrough live, directly transforming into a legendary knight. Although legendary knights may not be as good as legendary wizards, they are at least legendary and exist at the level of a town. Although their damage to the army and the city is not as good as the other two professions, when it comes to dealing with people, they are considered professional. Playing against monsters in the world of One Punch Superman happens to be a professional match. Join our snow-blowing team. Fighting alone is not a long-term solution. Our snow-blowing team is where you showcase your talents. Blizzard confidently invited Lewis. In her opinion, as the famous Blizzard group among B.level heroes, gathering together has even stronger influence than most A.level heroes. This barely tiger-level youth should join in with all their might. But, okay, well, but I'm not a hero. Ha! Blowing Snow was a bit stunned, but soon realized it. Although the League of Legends has been around for 2 years in this era, not all talented individuals among humans want to join the League of Legends. Some people prefer freedom and simply want to become a bounty hunter, while others are malicious and difficult to tame, becoming super-wanted criminals. A typical example in the original work is Hungry Wolf and Fawcett, both of which have S.level combat power, but obviously have not joined the League of Legends. Snowblowing searched for the bounty in his mind and confirmed the absence of Lewis, so it is estimated that Lewis is a bounty hunter or something like that. In this case, although joining the snowblowing group may be a bit unfair and even have some cost issues, it is not impossible. After thinking about it for a while and making a decision in my heart, I decided to continue inviting snowblowing. Well, that's okay. Our snowblowing team welcomes all talents, even bounty hunters can become our non-staff members. Those with salaries and commissions. The financial situation was very questionable, and Chui Shui, feeling guilty, made a gesture of money. Louis thought for a moment, but it wasn't that he was greedy for Chui Shui's body. He simply appreciated beauty and wanted to make some contribution to humanity. He replied. Well, at least this can be considered a big deal. We can't just finalize it on this street, can we? This doesn't fit your identity, Miss Blizzard. Let's leave each other's contact information first. I'll think about it these days and I'll definitely contact you within a month. Louis spoke softly, and although snowblowing was a bit impatient, he also knew that what Louis said made sense. She's in the grand snowblowing group, how could there be such a children's play on the street to recruit people into the group? Chiyu. Azu. Alright, in the original work, snowblowing is constantly entangled with Chiyu, even reaching a level of lack of grace. That's because this highly self-esteem imperial sister is made to seem ignored by Chiyu's indifferent attitude. Stimulated, the snowstorm appeared so brainless and entangled. Now Louis not only overshadowed Chiyu in terms of appearance, but also gave Chui Shui face in his response. He also took the initiative to leave contact information with each other, making Chui Shui very reasonable. It's better to say that if snowblowing were just a one-sided paranoia as portrayed in the anime, she wouldn't have created a snowblowing group. In the original work, the snowblowing group appeared to be just a running suit, but it was also full of official heroes who could compete head-on with tiger and wolf-level monsters, and even gather together to fight weaker ghost-level monsters on the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com. In the eyes of ordinary people, this is already a quite powerful existence, not just a cat or a dog. Even if placed in Louis's current hometown of Sofia, this is still a significant force that cannot even be compared to the Lehman family, who came from Louis. After all, the Lehman family, including Louis himself and his loyal knights, only had 1 Grand Knight and 6 official knights in total. And here, Louis only glanced briefly and saw a powerful figure comparable to a great wizard, with 3 great knights and a dozen formal knights. This power was enough to establish a small duchy on the continent of Sofia. Being able to convince and even remain loyal to such a group of people is naturally very talented. It was only when her sister's trembling tornado crushed her head from small to large, overprotective, and constantly derogatory that she developed the sensitive personality of blowing snow. I left a contact information for Louis, and then received news from the League of Legends that a tiger-level monster had appeared in a certain place. I quickly took my team members to catch the bus. Well, it seems that there is really a big problem with the finances of the snow-blowing team now. Shaking his head, he no longer thought about what he had or didn't have. Louis continued to carry 2 large pliers, preparing to bring one back and share it with his own girls. The remaining large pliers were left for the convenience store owner, who is over 30 years old, to make up for it. As for the other parts of the monster corpse, it's also easy to deal with. Although a city Louis is just an ordinary passerby character, at least he is the owner of a convenience store in a city, and there are still some ways to sell the remaining monster corpse. The 2 of them shared the money, and Louis can still buy more items that he temporarily gave up before. Chapter 10. Successful Return. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Advising City A. Louis to pay attention to the communication devices of the snow-blowing group in the coming period of time, and to pay more attention to the news of some strange people appearing, Louis waved his hand and prepared to bid farewell to this first offline group friend. His first time traveling can be said to have yielded far more than he had planned. At the beginning, he simply wanted to exchange the unique resources of Sofia continent and One Fist Superman world. This kind of trade monopoly between the 2 realms, let alone a noble knight whose reputation has spread throughout the kingdom of Hesse. Even an ordinary person, be careful, can take advantage of this opportunity to reach the pinnacle of life. However, the benefits provided by the chat group offline and the punch drawn from the Superman World Talent Limiter brought even greater surprise to Lewis. Money and wealth are all external things, and as a member of the extraordinary world, one should clearly recognize that one's own strength is fundamental. Lewis, who had witnessed aristocratic suppression of serfdom riots more than once on the continent of Sofia, deeply understood the meaning of the word human life is like a blade of grass. For him, the primary task now was to become stronger, not to overthrow anyone, but to avoid being overthrown by others, which is known as a sense of security. So, the limiter was definitely a bigger surprise for Lewis than the trade between the two worlds, which meant that Lewis could find ways to quickly possess the power to ensure the safety of himself and his important people. Afterwards, in the world of Superman, he engaged in a grueling battle with a wolf-level monster. Although it exceeded the plan, at least it was still very safe. In the uncertainty of whether the pre-communicated sparring could be considered a evenly matched battle, Lewis did not have any problem doing so. Anyway, there is a personal disposable magic scroll as a guarantee for personal safety, so I dare not gamble. Lewis should go to the Ainsbury house early to find Mrs. Alice Field to be cute and marry Chloe as a burden. Moreover, it has been proven that Lewis did the right thing. Just a battle against a wolf-level monster made Lewis the 16-year-old Grand Knight that has not appeared in Sofia for hundreds of years, which is definitely a huge gain. This represents that Lewis is a seed player among the legendary seeds. Apart from being careful not to be ambushed by jealous guys, others will only choose to win over Lewis. After all, who made Lewis a wandering knight now? TSK, I don't know if his cheap dad and cheap big brother would regret hitting the wall when Lewis became a Grand Knight at the age of 16. Even the most conservative aristocrats know the value of a 16-year-old Grand Knight, which is enough to make a family worry-free for 100 years. How many years has it been since the Lehman family made their fortune and became border pioneers? It's only about 100 years in total. Unfortunately, Mr. Lehman, the current cavalier of the pioneers, reluctantly followed the principles of conservatism in his previous decision as the first-in-line heir to the family and chose the ordinary elder brother of Louis I as his first heir. Louis had to follow the rules of the aristocratic system of the Sofia continent. Noble heirs without inheritance rights, if left behind to become assistants to the heirs, will never have a noble title in their lifetime. Alternatively, riding an old horse, wielding a rusty two-handed sword, and wearing close-fitting leather armor, one can become a wandering knight searching for opportunities. Oh, Lewis is in a better situation. After all, he has used his past life knowledge to invent and create many novel things in recent years, and has truly turned over the wealth of the Lehman family. Even the King of Hesse has joked at a banquet that he wants to invite this young man to become his courtier. So Lewis was able to embark on the path of wandering knights with so much material and manpower that, in the eyes of his elder brother, was already the inheritance of the Lehman family. And what does the wandering knight represent? Representing any person or power, as long as they can afford the price, they can recruit Lewis. Because wandering knights are this kind of existence, like hyenas, wandering around the continent in search of opportunities to become nobles. As long as someone gives this opportunity, they will go to great lengths. A bit too much, bring the topic back. Lewis, carrying a large pair of pliers and a pile of modern products, appeared in the tent where he disappeared last night in the blink of an eye. In the tent, there was only the loyal dog girl Crochan present. Fully armed, wearing leather armor and a small shield, Crochan, holding a short sword, looked so imposing and inviolable. It wasn't until she saw Lewis appear unscathed that Crochan's eyes lit up and she quickly took the large pliers from Lewis's shoulder. "You're back, master." "Well, I'm back and everything goes smoothly." When she heard Lewis say that everything was going smoothly, Crochan breathed a sigh of relief and showed a heartfelt smile. Anfei and Anna are on guard outside. To be cautious, we found a reason this morning to let the family caravan leave first. Now we are the only ones left here. Louis was able to confidently unleash his time-traveling ability to punch Superman world last night, believing that these three girls who have been following him have the ability to handle everything that comes next. Satisfied, he touched Crochen's soft and fluffy hair, teased her dog ears, and watched them tremble as if they couldn't resist itching. Louis finally laughed heartily this time. What is the frustration of struggling for 5 or 6 years but still failing? What is the helplessness of voluntarily coming to become a rebellious son.in.law? What is the confusion of ignorance facing the future, and what is the embarrassment of not having a toilet paper when going to the bathroom? Except for being a son.in.law at home, everything else can be set aside. Louis now feels as if he has returned to the time when he found himself just crossing the continent of Sofia, full of confidence. This is the charm of the golden finger. Crochet rubbed Louis's big hand with her smooth cheeks and looked curiously at what Louis had brought back. Although curious, as Louis's personal maid, Crochet was very sensible and didn't ask anything. The young girl's sensible appearance made Louis even more satisfied. He handed Crochet the large pliers that were 1 person tall, and the dog girl also easily held the pliers. This is a pair of claws for a lobster like Warcraft, which I bought from the wizard's territory. We have some good luck today. Put the backpack on the ground and say, there are some unique clothes from the wizard's territory and some women's items inside. I will teach you how to use them later. Crochen's face turned red. Although the development of clothing in this world is not as colorful as in later generations due to social and productivity issues, Louis still managed to find tailors to design some clothes in his pastime. Some of them, in Crochen's eyes, were particularly embarrassing, and naturally they were the 3 of them. Louis clapped his hands and looked at the large tent that allowed 4 or 5 people to roll inside without feeling cramped. Let's dismantle the tent first. There are too many remaining supplies and we can't fit them here. I'll transport them all back first. Yes. Crochet carried large pliers, hooked up her backpack, and walked out of the tent to find Anna and Anfi to help with the situation. Louis once again began his journey between the world of One Punch Superman and the continent of Sofia. He bought a lot of things from City A this time, and the hundreds of gold coins he brought over were enough to buy a large truck-level material. Not to mention the lobster monster that was later defeated in the wilderness, it also gained connections with some large enterprises, and the money it earned even earned some supplies and equipment that could not be openly traded in the world of Superman where monsters were rampant.